Today I am going to be going through this stack and the stack next to it of books that I read in 2021 that I still own. So this means that it's not books I didn't enjoy, it's not books that I borrowed from the library, the Libby app, audiobooks, it's not my devotionals because I'm not quite done with those, and it's not my Bookmas books. These are all of the books pretty much that I finished January through November. I have looked at some of them, but some of them I don't remember what's in the stack, so we will find out together. The first book, Revolutionary Women, From Colonists to Suffragists. This 5 stars. I definitely would reread it. It is filled with just these pages of different women who are influential and important in American history, and we love it. Highly recommend. Next, I read The Circle Maker. I rated this 4 stars. I'd like to reread this at different points in my life in the future, and it's basically all about prayer for your biggest dreams and goals. The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. This took me almost 2 years to read. I started at the beginning of 2020 and I finished in October of 2021. 985 pages. I'm pretty proud of myself. My first Russian novel that I actually finished. I watched Christy Lewis's live show. I found their conversation very enriching. Going along with my reading of this, I think I rated it 4 stars, and I do want to reread it in the future. It is a brilliantly put together murder mystery in Russia a couple centuries ago, and really well done. It's one of those things where you're reading and reading and reading and not even quite sure if the way that it resolves itself in the end is really what actually happened. And if that frustrates you, this may not be the book for you, but I found it so fascinating that we get an answer, but is it really the answer? I don't know. It's just one of these books that you could reread multiple times and get something different out of it every time. At least that's what I'm assuming and what I've heard. I also read Emma by Jane Austen. I rated this 4 stars. I probably would reread it again because now that I've read it and I kind of have an idea of what the story entails, I think I would enjoy it more. I tend to be that way. Repetition helps me enjoy things more. Basically, Emma is very young. She is kind of a matchmaker. Like, she thinks that she knows who people should be matched up with. Anyway, I probably would reread this in the future. Love this copy. I got it in a little free library. I also read Choosing Real by Becca Jane Pogue. I rated this 4 stars. I could reread it in the future. I don't necessarily have plans to. I got it because I love the cover. And my favorite part of this is where she shares her family's gift-giving tradition. I just love the ideas that she has in here. This summer, I reread A Time to Dance by Kingsbury. I have read this story multiple times, and no time that I've ever read it has hit me as hard as it did this summer. I literally cried through the whole thing. I don't remember it being as sad as it hit me this summer. Maybe I was just extra emotional. I don't know. This read through, I rated it 4 stars, though in the past I would have said 5. I undoubtedly will reread it again at some point in the future since it's one of my favorite books. And it's basically about this woman and her husband. They met as kids, fell in love, got married, and the story opens where basically they are getting ready to get a divorce, and then they find out that their daughter is engaged, and they decide to not tell the kids until after the wedding. And it's basically the story of what goes on during that time. I read Destination Jerusalem by Chris Mitchell, and I absolutely love this book. 5 stars. I think it is so important to get the perspective of people who are actually live in these scenarios that we hear about on the news, and I don't know that I'd reread it, at least not anytime soon, but I absolutely recommend it, and I very much appreciated learning the things that I learned through reading this book. In a similar vein, I also read I Am Malala, and I think I gave this 4 stars. Probably wouldn't reread it necessarily, but we'll keep it. Basically, it's Malala's story. She is the girl who famously stood up for education against the Taliban and was shot, recovered, and still stands up for education for women. And I think that that is very inspiring and an important story. I liked that it was very educational about the culture that she grew up in. I think it took a little bit of time to get to like the main story that we're all here for, but overall I think this is a really good book. I also read Rewriting Your Broken Story by Ken Boa. I think I gave this 5 stars. It was kind of hard for me to remember because I literally read it section by section, but every section is just mind-blowing, fascinating, so encouraging, and it's all about the power of an eternal perspective and focusing on things that are unseen more than the problems that we deal with on a daily basis in this life. I definitely would reread this for sure, and I highly recommend it. I also read How Did I Get Here by Christine Kane. I think I gave this 4 stars. I like that it's short. I love the feel of it and this cover. I probably will reread this at some point because I read it quickly and I would like to take time to read it section by section, just like I did with Rewriting Your Broken Story. I really do like to take these kind of books section by section, and I think that is something I'm going to try to be more mindful of in 2022 when making my TBRs, that I like to take these books slowly rather than just like rush through them. Like a fiction book, you can sit down and read and follow the story. You can't really do that with these. It's about finding your way back to God when everything is pulling you away, and it's basically just like when you feel lost spiritually, what happened and how do you get back. I also read Honor's Reward by John Bevere. Definitely 5 stars. This is one of those books that I think that everybody should read. It talks about literally the reward for honoring all kinds of different people in your life. I highly recommend this book, and I definitely would reread this in the future. So I read The Best Yes by Lysa TerKeurst. I think this would be wise for me to reread in the future. I don't have plans to right now, but like some of these others, I'd like to take it section by section. I gave it 4 stars, I think, but it's all about how to make the best decisions. And, you know, if you have multiple options, not to say yes to everything, but to choose the things that are best for you in that time, and how that's not a selfish thing. So I definitely recommend this, and I probably would reread it in the future. I also read Breaking the Cycle of Divorce by Dr. John Trent. I think this is a great book. It just talks about different unhealthy trends in families, and I think that extends to more than just families where the parents are divorced. That's the only thing I didn't really like about it. I thought it could be more inclusive, though I understand their point. Overall, I like this. I'll probably reread it because it's very short and easy to get through. I read the Hope Out Loud prayer journal, and basically this just has journal entries from the girl who wrote this that apply to different situations. Like, this is when I'm doubting if God cares. It has the journal entry, it has Bible verses that go along with it, and then it has space to write. And I literally just, no pressure, wrote what I felt like writing on each of the journal pages. And it was just a good experience to go through and be reminded of the promises in God's Word, and just to be able to write out some of my thoughts. Another short devotional, I have the 7-day version of Embraced, which is a 100-day devotional all about knowing that God is holding you close, and that is Embraced by Lysa TerKeurst. I think I gave this 4 stars. But I would like to check out the real full devotional. One of my favorite books this year is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I have loved the 2005 adaptation since 2005. I also love the BBC version since I saw that a few years ago, and this most definitely did not disappoint. I love this book. I own 3 copies, and I hope to have more in the future. I actually got this one from a little free library, and it is the one that I used to read through, and I absolutely loved the experience. 5 stars. Will read it again. Another book I really enjoyed this year was A Shiver of Snow and Sky. Oh my goodness, if you saw the vlogs in which I read this, you know how much I love this. It did take me about 100 pages to get into the story, but once I was into it, I loved it. And I'm obsessed with the cover for this, and if you saw my What I Got for Christmas video, you know I got the companion novel that is equally as beautiful. I just love these books. I can't wait to read the next book when it's Polarthon. I think I gave this 4 stars because it did take that time to get into it, but if I had only read like from page 100 to the end, it would have been 5 stars. Absolutely love it. And honestly, I'd probably reread it again in the future. Another book I loved, Good Morning, Good Life by Amy Landino, who is my favorite YouTuber outside of BookTube. It's just filled with all kinds of practical tips on how to create a morning routine that is perfectly tailored to you and what's best for you. 5 stars, 100%. What does she say? 5 simple habits to master your mornings and upgrade your life. This is definitely one I want to reread and reread and reread over and over and over again. So I might need to put this on my 2022 TBR. Oh, and also I heard that there is a version of this that she is writing with her best friend and it's supposed to come out in 2022, so might need to reread this and then read that book because I need all of this in my life. I also read The Wedding Dress by Rachel Hoke. I don't know how to say her name. If you saw the vlogs where I was reading this, you know I don't know how to say her name. I'm sorry, Rachel. If anyone knows how that's pronounced, let me know, because I feel like it could be a few different ways. Anyway, 4 stars. I could reread in the future. It's not like on my priority list or anything, but I really did enjoy it. Basically, it's about how these 4 women from different time periods are connected by this one wedding dress. I also reread a longtime favorite, The Last Song. I love this book so much. Honestly, I enjoyed it more this time than I did the first time I read it. I noticed things I didn't see the first time, and the ending got me so much more this time around. Honestly, I'd say 5 stars for this reading experience, maybe 4.5. I love this book, and I will absolutely reread it in the future. If you don't know what The Last Song is, you gotta watch the movie and you gotta read the book. Another 5-star read, Fighting for Life by Lyla Rose. I love that this is literally her life story and how she has always had an affinity for fighting for life in different capacities from the time that she was a child. I think that it's so fascinating when people who become very influential in one area were always drawn to that area as kids. I hope that makes sense, but I thoroughly enjoyed this and I definitely recommend it. And it just was very inspiring and encouraging to be passionate about things that are important to you. And I love it for that. So I probably would reread this again. It's also not on my priority to read list, but definitely 5 stars and I highly recommend. Another 5-star, The Most Beautiful Disaster by Hope Carpenter. I love this book. Pastor Hope was one of my pastors when the church that I went to from the time I was 13 to 26, 25, something like that. It's basically all about how God used some of the worst situations in her life to like reshape her life, and how, what does it say? How God makes miracles out of our mistakes. It's a long-time favorite of mine. It is Glorious Appearing, part of the Left Behind series. I love this series. I loved the series growing up, and this is my favorite book from it. And so I enjoyed rereading it. I don't know why I was not connecting with it as much as I did when I was younger. I think I just had very high expectations going into my reread, but I do love this book and I will, of course, reread it again in the future, undoubtedly. Also read To Honor a Teacher. This one was kind of weird. I'm not sure if I want to keep it. There were some really sweet excerpts in here, and then there were some really odd ones. People who are, you know, a little bit too obsessed with their teachers, and it was just very strange. I got this in a little free library, and I think I gave it 3 stars. I don't know that I want to keep this, to be honest. I love the way the cover looks, and it's so pretty. It's also really weird in some spots. I don't know how I feel about keeping this one. We'll see. Also read The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. Well, it's excerpts of his writings. I think I gave this 4 stars. I do want to reread it. I think it's something that you could reread over and over again and learn something new every time. He had a very inspiring relationship with God and life in general, so I highly recommend this. Next, I read 100 Best Loved Poems, and I didn't really love my reading experience with this. I'll keep it because I love the cover. I've had this book since 8th grade. It was part of a class that I was in. And there are some poems in here that I love, like the sonnets that I memorized in school and Annabelle Lee, about all that I can really think of. I do sometimes struggle with poems, like if it doesn't capture my attention, I'm just not interested. But there are also some that I really enjoyed. Probably will reread parts of this at some point in the future, but it's not my priority. And that's really all I have to say about that. The last book is one I'm still not sure if I want to keep. I probably will. And that is the Holiness Day by Day Devotional. I'm torn about it because a lot of these devotions just seemed very religious to me and maybe not necessarily as biblical as they could be. I gave this 3 stars, and really the only reason I want to keep it is because I love the aesthetic of it and I got it for high school graduation. But I probably won't ever reread it that I know of. So here are just some of my favorites from the year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What books did you really enjoy in 2021? Comment below and let me know. Also, let me know which of these you think you might like to try out. Alright, on that note, I will talk to you guys next time. I still want to do a reading day vlog, an overview of the books I read for Bookmas this year, and my blind date with a book unboxing that I'm super excited about. On that note, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!